Okay guys, so I'm just making this video today on carbohydrates and understand exactly how to use the carbohydrates for your carbohydrates for fat loss. Now I think there can be a little bit of confusion sometimes. I mean, carbohydrates are often kind of labelled the enemy and should be avoided at all costs if your goal is fat loss. But there is a difference between no low carbs and no carbs. And carbs can generally get all thrown in together without people really understanding which carbs to eat, when, and why for true kind of health, fat loss and optimal body composition. So my intention really with this video is to help you understand a little bit more about how to use carbs for fat loss. Obviously nutrition can be very confusing at times and pretty complicated. If you haven't already watched the video that I made before on calculating specific macros for you as an individual, and previous to that I made the other video which was just concentrating on portion sizes for some other types as well, so watch that video. So I want really to keep this as simple as possible, so you can start putting it into action and following it with specific principles that are talked about in this video. So I want really to explain why carbs aren't the enemy. It's more about the nutrient timing, the quality, the source, your metabolism, your somatotype. Obviously you've got the hormonal effects of carbs as well, because I know a lot of the time people can end up craving sugary processed carbs and even kind of lacking energy, and a lot of the time that is related to your hormonal state. So obviously stress is a big factor as well. And even certain hormones like ghrelin and leptin, which control your hunger hormones, they can make a big difference as well. Okay, so let's get stuck into more of the science side of things. So there's lots of different carbohydrates. You've got your polysaccharides, which are like your complex and fibrous carbs. So examples of these are starch from rice and vegetables, which are more your fibrous carbs. Your monosaccharides, which are your natural sugars. Examples of that are like fruit from fructose. So although fruit is a carbohydrate and it is a source of it is especially if you're looking to lose body fat to begin with, it is something which you can use. You just have to be careful that if you overdo it on especially dried fruit that is high in sugar. Okay. Then you've got the disaccharides, which are more the refined simple sugars. Obviously things like cakes, sweets. It's really like sucrose. Anything with oats is going to be high in sugar, so you want to really avoid them as much as possible, at least until you get pretty lean. And then, as I said before, I think this idea of a cheat day or a free day can get used a bit too freely, and we really want to get your body fat down before you reach that point. Okay, so if you, this is quite a good summary that I found. If you think of carbohydrates, saccharides as a chain of pearls, and the more complex carbs like the polysaccharides have more pearls attached to that chain, then the monosaccharides just have 2 pearls and the disaccharides 1. The longer and more complex carbohydrate chain, the longer it takes to break them down. So everyone is unique and has a unique somatotype and metabolic design, but you can get an idea of which carbs are best for fat loss. In addition, balancing our own blood sugar levels by avoiding eating carbs that spike high and low blood sugar levels throughout the day. This will unbalance our hormones and create a fat storing environment for our bodies. So again, snacking throughout the day would not be the ideal option for fat loss, because every time you're snacking, you're releasing, your body's having to release insulin, which is the hormone that we use for controlling for controlling fat circulating around the body. So really want to limit the amount of insulin release. And a lot of the time when that insulin release, cortisol is also released, and that can end up with storing fat around the belly area along with stress as well. So complex carbohydrates, so complex carbohydrates such as rice and potatoes have a slower assimilation and absorption process. They don't have such an impact on blood sugar regulation compared to the natural and simple sugars, such as fruit and honey, which cause a faster glucose uptake. So again, this will really come down to somatotype. Complex carbs help us as they are a source of energy and keep you feeling fuller for longer, whereas the refined carbs will give you a boost of energy followed by a fast crash in energy of mood. So the complex carbs, they do have their place, and I would obviously, the first stage in nutrition is really cutting out all the crap, all the stuff you already know, which I've mentioned many times before that you should be eating. That's your stage one, because this has been a lot more specific with how you're consuming your carbs. I mean, obviously, eating the super refined disaccharides such as sweets and chocolate on a regular basis is going to, it's going to ruin your health. It's going to cause you to have more cravings, and it's going to cause you to gain more weight or body fat. I mean, there's obviously a lot of these simple sugars that are around in our food system now, hence the increase in type 2 diabetes and just obesity generally. So really, it's something when you're going to have the disaccharides, the simple sugars, then the best time to have them is kind of like around or after training time, or once you're starting to get that bit leaner and you know what your macros are per day. So on a very basic level, the quality of your carbs is important as well. So where you're getting your carbohydrates from, how they're grown, what the soil is like before you eat them. This is all going to make a big difference as well. So, I mean, at the moment, if I'm honest, I'd say people consume obviously too many starchy carbs. It goes back to the whole cereal, toast. I know you guys obviously are on this plan, so you don't want to be doing that. But in general, this does happen. Your bread, your pasta, your cereal. So you guys are, if you're following my advice, then you're staying away from that, which you should be. There's plenty of other options. So to break it down, you got your fibrous, complex carbohydrates, asparagus, aubergine, green beans, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. You got your cruciferous vegetables, which are awesome. They're like superfoods. So again, like I said before, you could have a super shake if need be, and we're talking your super shake could have a mix of those fibrous carbs in, so you could put some spinach in there, you could put some sun warrior, you can put some nut butters, some berries, some low GI berries, and some almond milk, so you can create like a super shake. So going back to the fibrous carbs again, just gone off kilter slightly. So again, your cucumbers, your lettuce. I mean, a lot of this you'll probably know already, that your fibrous carbs are important. I think it gets a bit more confusing when you get down to the complex carbs. When should you have them? So your complex carbs are things like your oatmeal, your brown rice, your sweet potato. I'm not a massive fan of whole wheat pasta. You can get quinoa pasta, which is probably a better option. Buckwheat rye. Again, it really depends on the source of the grain and what has happened in that process. So the starchy carbs, if you naturally hold a lot of body fat, I keep them to about 25%, so a lower amount of your intake to begin with. And then you've got your simple carbohydrates, which are your fruit. I'll probably include some more fruit within your day-to-day nutrition. I'll break this down a bit more in the next video. Sorry, the next slide. So we're going back to this endomorph, mesomorph, ectomorph. It seems like the endomorph's got really big shorts on, and that looks like a penis. But anyway, okay. So this is really what we structure everything on. Because some of you guys are endomorphs naturally, and I know it's sometimes hard to define exactly which are you one of these, because you can be a little bit in between the two. Some of the other guys are more of an ectomorph. So this is going to have a bit of a bearing on the journey forwards from here. So just going back to what I mentioned in the other videos, ectomorphs naturally thin, thyroid dominant, fast metabolic rate, high sympathetic nervous system, higher carbohydrate tolerance. Mesomorph, everyone hates mesomorphs, naturally muscular, testosterone growth hormone, dominant, high sympathetic nervous system activity, moderate carbohydrate intake. And then, which I'll be honest, I do see quite a few guys are at this stage at the moment, sort of naturally broad and thick with a low sympathetic nervous system. It's going to be a slightly low carbohydrate intake to begin with, so probably about 25%. Going back to your carbohydrate timing, so when should you have your carbohydrates? At one point. So if you're naturally, you're naturally fairly thin, you should include like your sugary carbs after each session. I know before, I think it was Julian was asking me about, okay, what about if I want to have these breakfast bars? And now, if you're naturally thin, then you probably get away with having that in the morning and in the afternoon to a degree, as long as you're consuming your other food. Everything with nutrition, from my experience, is yes but, because it depends on a lot of factors. So I would include those sugary carbs after each session. That's when I have the breakfast bars, the naked bars, any sort of sugar I would have it around or after training time, okay? Starchy whole grains for your naturally thinner ectomorph, you could be pretty much eating with each meal to a certain degree. You're not, you've got a lower, you can absorb those starchy whole grains a lot better than someone like an endomorph. So vegetables and fruit, you're looking at like a 3 to 1 serving of veggies to 1 serving of fruit. You can eat those with each meal. Very, very simple. Okay, carbohydrate timing for your mesomorph though, the one that we hate, which is the naturally muscular guy. So really, if you are this, I think a few of the guys in camp are slightly mesomorphic. You can get away with a bit more nutrition-wise. Again, as long as you're cutting out that crap and not too stressed out, sleeping, etc., and using some basic supplements to help support that, any kind of stress. So I would say you should include the sugary carbs, again, after or around each exercise session. That is the best time. You're going to get some fruit. You're going to get in, as I said before, any kind of naked bars or anything that's going to be a bit higher in sugar. Then that is your best time to absorb it. Then your starchy whole minimally processed carbs you'd have around after exercise, and just a moderate amount during the day, maybe not so much. Okay. Veggies and fruit be more of a 4 to 1 serving, so looking higher veggie amount to the fruit. You could eat those with each meal. And lastly, endomorph. So endomorph, again, naturally holds onto a lot of body fat, so should only really include the sugary carbs after each exercise. Similar to the other somatotypes, that would be the best time, fat loss wise, to consume it. Veggies and fruits, you're looking at a lot higher ratio, so higher amount of your veggies to your fruit. So again, your carbohydrate intake is going to be around about kind of 20%, 25%, sorry, if you're looking to lose body fat, and you're kind of eating those with each meal. So some sort of protein, as I said before, some protein in the morning, could be eggs, fish, could have a super shake, small amount of nuts. I've gone through the portion sizes before, and then really that's when you can have your veggies and your fruit, especially if you train in the morning. That'd be perfect. Same again for lunch. You could have some grilled chicken with some, vegetables is an awesome option. You really can't go wrong there. With maybe some sweet potato, it'd be great. And then for an evening meal, that would be the time after training. If you're going to have any carbohydrates, starchier carbs, sugary carbs, then you have them after training. Okay. So hopefully, guys, that's helped give you a bit more of a breakdown on carbohydrates, what they are, how they work. Obviously, we need them for energy, but it's for just being very specific with kind of why you have them, because the fibrous complex carb like vegetables really have a minimal effect on the body's blood sugar regulation, and they pack really tons of fibre and they aid digestion. So as I said before, eating the dark leafy green vegetables, which contain a lot of DIM, which is an active form of indole 3-carbinol. This will actually help you, will help the fat burning process. So vegetables, that's why vegetables are such a great option. Things like as well, now I know some of you guys mentioned before, kind of bread. You want to really go for like a sprouted grain bread. Ezekiel bread, I know is a particular one. I don't have it myself, but that, if you're going to go for bread, could be a good option. I haven't actually found it in supermarkets. So cereals as well. Now again, cereals are never going to be a good option, but if you find more of a nut-based one, you make a nut-based one, depending on your somatotype, then that could be an option as well. I'm talking more fats here rather than carbohydrates. So hopefully that's helped you a little bit. But really, your quinoa, your sweet potato, your squash, your vegetables, if you're looking to drop body fat, then these are going to be the best options for you. Yeah, I think that's pretty much summed everything up. Yeah, so if you have any questions at all, guys, or you're not sure, then let me know. But hopefully that's helped you have a bit more of an understanding about carbohydrate timing, when you should have your carbs, what they are, and how to structure them in. Awesome. Okay, cheers then.